Hi, everyone. So, as you probably know, the Colorado Supreme Court has disqualified Donald Trump from being on the ballot in the Republican primary. And there have been many misstatements of the law and what actually went down. So, I'm going to address some of these issues. I wanted to address it earlier. I haven't been feeling well. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm going to try to get through this really quickly just so that people can understand what's actually going on. So basically, the Colorado Supreme Court removed him from the ballot based on the 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment specifically. So, one of the things I want to correct is that they were saying that the Colorado Supreme Court removed him without a hearing at the district court level. That's not true. So, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now I actually want to put this on full screen because I'm not sure how much you can actually see. Okay, so this was the original verified petition. And so when someone files a verified petition, that means it was under oath. So the part that I want you guys to pay attention to is the fact that and I tried to highlight this, but it wouldn't highlight. Donald Trump was a named respondent, as well as the Colorado Secretary of State. So Donald Trump did receive notice and an opportunity to be heard, which satisfies the requirements of due process. So they didn't just go straight to the Supreme Court; it went through district court first. Um, and here is the list of the parties. Donald, where does it? I'm trying to get to the part where it says Donald Trump. Yes, respondent Donald J. Trump. Excuse me, Donald J. Trump is a private citizen and a candidate under Colorado and federal law for the 2014 Republican presidential primary election. It lists the Secretary of State, and this was filed by electors. So this is about the Electoral College, right? This is something I want y'all to know also. This wasn't brought by private citizens. This whole concept of one man, one vote is not the way that things actually work in practice. These electors, and I had to look this up because I didn't know they were referring to Electoral College. This petition was filed by electors. So these electors don't respect the right of individual citizens to vote. Which I don't understand why they had to file this petition in the first place. Because if they didn't like Donald Trump, they could have just given their electoral votes to another candidate. So the fact that they had to go through this maneuver doesn't make a whole lot of sense, except that they were trying to virtue signal other states to do the same thing. Because now other states are trying to remove Donald Trump. And I've already researched other cases that have been filed against Donald Trump. Okay, so let's get through a little bit more. Um, Here's the part that I want y'all to focus on. So it says the court has jurisdiction over this action under CRS sections one. I'm not even going to read it. Basically, these are all Colorado statutes, right? So this is the jurisdiction that they're invoking. There's nothing under federal law that has been invoked. And then, and I did, this was a longer document, but I just edited out the relevant parts. Then they somehow jumped to the 14th Amendment. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. The Civil War and Reconstruction marked America's second founding. By the way, the Reconstruction Amendments are the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. These were only supposed to apply to slaves and their descendants. Um, let me go ahead and because some of y'all may think I'm making this up. This is a U.S. Supreme Court case, Connecticut General Life Insurance versus Colorado, versus Johnson. Excuse me. And this is what it says. Where did I highlighted it. Here it Section 3 of the amendment said that no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress. It goes on and talk about United States officers. This amendment was sought to prevent discrimination by the states against classes or races. So this 14th Amendment provision was supposed to protect slaves and their descendants from insurrection. And now they're hijacking a provision which was intended for slaves and their descendants to disrupt the political process. Now it's not even about slaves and their descendants anymore. Now it's about removing Donald Trump from the ballot. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay, so again, this petition was filed based on Colorado law, and then they invoked the 14th Amendment. Um, at no point did they invoke federal jurisdiction, because even if they had invoked it, then the federal courts would have original jurisdiction, and Donald Trump could have removed the case to federal court. But no, they basically pulled a bait and switch where they filed a petition based on state law, but then the crux of it was based on federal law. I think this is a due process violation because if I don't know, maybe his attorneys weren't savvy enough. They should have read through this and they should have known that this was a federal case and they should have removed it to federal court. But they decided to allow the Colorado court to rule on this, and the Colorado court does not have subject matter jurisdiction. And I'm going to tell you why. So here's what the Colorado statute says: when any controversy arises between any candidate, any eligible elector files a verified petition in a district court or, excuse me, y'all, I blew it up a little bit too much. Let me make it smaller. Let me start over. When any controversy arises between any candidate, any eligible elector files a verified petition in a district court of competent jurisdiction. This wasn't a court of competent jurisdiction, alleging that a person charged with a duty under this code has committed or is about to commit a breach or neglect of duty or other wrongful act after notice to the official, which includes an opportunity to be heard upon a finding of good cause. The district court shall issue an order requiring substantial compliance with the provisions of this code. The order shall require the person charged to forthwith perform the duty or desist from the wrongful act, or to forthwith show cause why the order should not be obeyed. The burden of proof is on the petitioner. Okay, so this code tells you exactly what powers or what jurisdiction the court has. It specifically says that if a person is about to commit a breach or neglect of duty, the district court has the jurisdiction to order substantial compliance. What that means is the court is supposed to order Donald Trump to comply with the law, to not engage in an insurrection. Nowhere does it say anything about removing Donald Trump from the ballot. Okay, now here's the other provision. The proceedings may be reviewed and finally adjudicated by the Supreme Court of the state. If either party makes application to the Supreme Court within 3 days after the district court proceedings are terminated, unless the Supreme Court in its discretion declines jurisdiction of the case. If the Supreme Court declines to review the proceedings, the decision of the district court shall be final and not subject to further appellate review. Okay, so this provision doesn't give the Supreme Court any additional authority. This only gives the Supreme Court appellate review, which is to confirm the district court's or uh, overturn the district court's opinion. But in this case, they decided to affirm. Okay, the district court still had no jurisdiction to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. That's not what this code says. They were supposed to order substantial compliance. They're supposed to order Donald Trump to refrain from engaging in an insurrection. Not that he's ever been proven to engage in an insurrection in the first place, and I'm going to address that also. But if Donald Trump did engage in an insurrection, then they could hold him in contempt. But the first step is to order substantial compliance, which did not happen. They just jumped the gun and decided to not follow state law, but use federal law to have him removed from the ballot. That's completely ridiculous. Okay, so now let's go a little bit further. Okay, so here's what Section 3 says. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who have been previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislator, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such a disability. Okay, so the part that they're clinging on to is to say that Donald Trump is a United States officer. I mean, they were very specific to say that no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress. Um, I think it's a stretch to say that because Donald Trump is a president that he holds an office. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to address whether or not it applies to Donald Trump. It probably does apply to him. It probably does apply to the president. But the problem is the Colorado courts still don't have jurisdiction. There was never any invoking of that provision in the complaint. Excuse me. Now let's go back to the petition. I mean, let's. Excuse me, y'all. I'm not feeling well. Again, the only jurisdiction that was invoked in this petition was Colorado law under the Colorado Elections Code. Nothing about the 14th Amendment. Now, they put this in here as one of their remedies, right? Now they're going to use the 14th Amendment to request that he be disqualified from being on a ballot. And then they go into detail about how he engaged in an insurrection. He knowingly and voluntarily aided and incited the insurrection, basically because he was trying to fight the election results. And then they specifically say that because he used the word fight, that he was inciting violence. There are different types of fights. You can have a political fight. You can have a fight. You can have a protest. I mean, the fact that he used the word fight does not mean that he's inciting an insurrection. And they're saying that basically he had a duty to tell the protesters to go home. He didn't he didn't deploy a federal response. I don't know how a failure to call for a federal response is inciting the insurrection. These so-called insurrectionists had already decided they were going to storm the Capitol. So that's not exciting them. They had already decided to do that of their own volition. Um, he didn't tell the mob to leave the See, that's not inciting an insurrection. That's a failure to see. First of all, I don't believe that Donald Trump had a duty to tell them to go home because, according to John Locke, we live I mean, okay, so the US Constitution is a social contract. It's based on the consent of the governed. So, according to John Locke, the people have a an alienable right to overthrow the government. If you don't have a right to overthrow the government, then it's not a government of consent. It's not a Republican form of government. I know everyone wants to call it a democracy. It's not a democracy. But at the end of the day, it's not based on consent. So if you don't have a right to overthrow your government when they fail to uphold their constitutional duties, then it's not a government of consent. It's not a free society the way it's based on force. What they're talking about is tyranny. You don't have a right to overthrow your government. You're supposed to just obey them and do what you're told. That's not how the Constitution works. You do have a right to overthrow your government. I don't know why an insurrection would even be a crime when you have that right. So, anyway, I'm going to play this clip. Oh, I do have a free comments. Let me see. No, it's not a real crime. This is a political ploy to remove Donald Trump from the ballot because they know he's a threat. And I don't know why they would need to remove him from the ballot when the electors, the electors who seem to have more rights than us as the American people, they could have just given the electoral votes to someone else like they did to when it came to Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders won, but they didn't want him, so they gave the electoral votes to Hillary Clinton. I don't see why the Colorado electors couldn't do the same thing. Oh yeah, I wasn't aware that he called for the National Guard. Um, but I'm going to play this clip. This is from the Hill. This is Alan Dershowitz trying to give his opinion on the matter, and I don't think that he got it right.
Here to discuss the legal ramifications and what happens next for the Trump team is lawyer and legal expert Professor Alan Dershowitz. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Professor Dershowitz, I want to take on some of the bigger legal questions with respect to the Colorado case first. As we mentioned in the read, and I think as Tucker Carlson just alluded to, one of the components of this lawsuit that are being questioned is whether or not it applies to the President of the United States, the section of the 14th Amendment. Many legal commentators that I've listened to say that that is the weakest part of Trump's objection. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a technical objection because the term that's used in the 14th Amendment is support, and that's not in the presidential oath. Presidential oath says preserve, protect, and defend. It's a highly technical argument. The much, much stronger argument is Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, which is as clear as could be. It says the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. In other words, it's Congress, not the states. And that makes so much sense when you think of how the 14th Amendment was passed. It was passed by radical Republican Lincoln Reconstructionists. And the last thing they would want is to let states make that decision, because the states include Mississippi, Alabama, all the Confederate states. So it would have been lunacy for the framers to allow the state courts, like the Colorado Supreme Court, to decide what is an insurrection and whether it applies to the president or not. This is a decision that's allocated by the Constitution solely to Congress, and it's a power grab.
Okay, that argument makes absolutely no sense. And I'm going to explain why. Let's read this comment. It annoys me how worried and afraid people are to even attempt to fight the government for what they've done to us for centuries. Well, part of it is that they're ignorant about what rights they actually have. This is why I keep talking to you all about the Ninth Amendment. I keep talking to you all about how it is based on a social contract that you do have the inalienable right to overthrow the government. I don't know how many people are actually going to tell you these things. You do have a right to overthrow the government, and I'm not saying by violence. Politically, even in the state of I live in Texas, y'all. Even in the state of Texas, it says in the Constitution that you have a right to overthrow the government. So I don't know why nobody's telling you all these things. Yeah, you do have a right. That is an alienable right. But let me address what Alan Dershowitz said. He says that only Congress has the authority to decide whether to remove a president from the ballot. Okay, that makes absolutely no sense. So first of all, let's read. This is the 14th Amendment that I'm reading, y'all. Um, and they're talking about Section 3. It says, no person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of the state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Okay, so now let's read what Section 5 says. This is what he's referring to. The Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. So, Congress has the authority to to enforce legislate. Excuse me, y'all. The Congress has the authority to pass legislation to enforce the 14th Amendment. But that doesn't mean that Congress is the one that interprets the 14th Amendment, because it says right here in Section 3 that Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. So it doesn't make sense that if Congress is the one that declared Donald Trump to be an insurrectionist, this same legislative body would be the ones deciding to remove said disability. No, it would come from the courts. And the federal courts have original jurisdiction. Colorado, the Colorado District Court and the Colorado Supreme Court does not have original jurisdiction. The only jurisdiction that the Colorado courts had was to order substantial compliance, and they exceeded their authority by removing help from the ballot. Now, excuse me, y'all, my nose is so congested, and I'm trying to get through this without sounding nasally. Excuse me, but Donald Trump must have some really, really shitty attorneys. Either he has shitty attorneys or the court just isn't following the law. Um, but when there has been a disability imposed on Donald Trump to say that he cannot be on the ballot, it is for Congress by a 2/3 vote to remove said disability. So they got the law completely wrong. And even Alan Dershowitz is completely wrong. And y'all know, I mean, maybe y'all don't know who Alan Dershowitz is. This guy is an ambulance chaser. He represents anybody. He represented Epstein. This a low life scum. He's a Zionist. This a terrible lawyer. He's a Harvard law professor. Complete scum. Complete scum. Let me read some of these comments. Yeah, he is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So I just wanted to throw that little bit out because I wanted to put it out into the zeitgeist. No one else is saying this. No one is saying that the Colorado Supreme Court did not have subject matter jurisdiction to have Donald Trump removed from the ballot. Now, I'm not saying that I support Donald Trump. That has nothing to do with anything. Um, if we had ranked choice voting, I would choose Jill Stein first. And if it was between Donald Trump and Biden, I would choose Donald Trump over Biden because, at the very least, Donald Trump was not a warmonger. He would not support this surge or the bombing of Gaza. Donald Trump did not get us into any conflicts. Hillary Clinton would have done it, and clearly Joe Biden supports that. So, no, Donald Trump would be my second choice. Jill Stein would be my first choice. Yeah, I think Giuliani declared bankrupt because of all of his attorney's fees. These attorney's fees are so outrageous. I mean, they're literally sending people to the poorhouse. Who wanted to eject? Are you talking about Donald Trump? Nikki Haley. Well, they all support Israel, and they think that anyone who criticizes Israel is anti-Semitic. And this is getting really tired. People are not falling for the okie doke anymore. People don't care about the label of being called anti-Semitic. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We don't support genocide. It doesn't matter whether the fact that you happen to be Jewish. We don't care who you are. You don't get a free pass. What's going on in Gaza is absolutely wrong. And as people of color, we don't support that because we have been oppressed too. And they're saying that the reason that it doesn't matter is because the Palestinians are savages. So you think that people of color are going to support that shit, this racist bullshit, calling the Palestinians the children of the dark? No. So the only reason why I'm bringing this up because part of that discussion with Alan Dershowitz was about Gaza, which I'm not going to address right now. I really wanted to focus on the removal of Donald Trump from the ballot. Um, but the fact that this is about to go before the U.S. Supreme Court, if, yeah, there's no way that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to uphold this. So I think it was a complete waste of time. It was a Hail Mary. They were desperate. They thought Donald Trump was going. Gosh, they really don't have any faith in the American people. They really don't respect us at all. That they think we should even have a choice in who we get to vote for. They're trying to disqualify the third party candidates. These are well, it was mostly Democrats, but it was bipartisan. There were a couple of Republicans who joined in on this election on this petition. Okay, I'm going to have to end this live stream because my nose is so congested, and it just started getting congested when I started this live stream. So, um, thank y'all for joining. Let me read these last two comments. Well, like I said, I don't support Donald Trump, but it's really about the lesser of two evils. Uh, Hillary Clinton was corrupt. Joe Biden is corrupt. They're all corrupt. So, like I said, my first choice is Jill Stein, but I would choose Trump over Joe Biden for sure. Yeah, I do have an 80 pie. I'm about to go use it right now. So y'all have a good day, and hopefully I'll be doing another live stream soon.